And you did mention that. And how does it differ from what it was in the past?
Yeah, I think in order to understand how it differs from the past is to understand what it was in the past. And what it was in the past is very different than it is today. When I first began running tours back in 1925, we had a very different guest. The typical guest would actually show up to get on a motor coach wearing a jacket and a tie. The women were dressed as if they were going to the opera, and this is how they would dress every day. And we had luggage, like we carried more bags than we carried people, about two bags.
Steamer trunks, right?
Steamer trunks, literally, because it was like that. And the definition of luxury was 3 full a la carte meals a day. We spent an average of 4 hours dining per day on tour, on average. And so a typical day back then would be to get up, have a full a la carte breakfast, which had to be at least an hour, right? And get on a motor coach so that we could sort of show them things out the window and they could rest up till we got to lunch, which would be about another hour and a half, and then get on the coach and snooze a little and listen to some commentary and look out the window and rest up for dinner in a very fine accommodation. That's what it used to be like. But today's traveler is much different because they're number one, they're active. And today's traveler says, don't tell me about the destination. I don't want to see it, I want to do it. Don't tell me about painting if you don't put a palette in my hand. Don't tell me about cooking if you don't let me cook. And so, we've had to evolve things, and now the next wave of evolution goes beyond that. It becomes a matter of personal choice. So technology is assisting because technology allows people to communicate on the fly so that we can know at any given time what a person wants to do at the moment. So rather than everybody now doing a unique experience together, they might have a different understanding of what that unique experience will be.
Right.
For instance, if you go to the Cinque Terre, some people may want to climb it, but some not that much. So some people now might want to bike in Europe, but not through Europe. So for those reasons, we've got to be able to tailor things not only for the group, but within the group. And really, we've got a mission right now called Land 100 as we prepare for our 100th year in business. And that's to be able to provide not only personal choice on water, but to provide it as well on land. And I think really that's the future.
Yeah, well, when I was hanging from the cliff on your heli hiking trip, I was thinking about the meal I was going to have that later that night. So I was sort of a throwback to the idea when I wasn't worried about falling, but that was another story. Ignacio.
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple of things. We sell, I echo what Rick just said, absolutely, but we sell a lot of different brands in addition to Tauck, and I would say a few things that have changed over the last few years in terms of the whole upscale tour experience. And I would say number one is more opportunities for solo travelers. And this is, I think, a growing market that nobody really is paying any attention to. Abercrombie and Kent has had great success with their solo programs where they just take individuals and take them on a trip to New Zealand, which involves hiking and canoeing and kayaking and all the rest. But these are individuals. I mean, people don't realize we live in Manhattan, well, most of us do, and over 50% of the households in Manhattan are one person. And nobody is really marketing to that demographic, in my opinion. The other is family, which I think Tauck has done a phenomenal job with, but many other companies are doing great programs with children and teenagers where there are different things to do, where everybody can experience, say, Costa Rica or India or Japan or wherever, at a different pace with different opportunities and what have you. So I think in general it has become more flexible. I think there are more themed journeys or with special things to do. There's more access, and there's also a lot of what I call surprise and delight, where you may be traveling with a small group in Thailand, and all of a sudden there you are by the river, and everybody has the opportunity to, play and wash an elephant in the river, for example, in deepest, Chiang Rai. So something completely unexpected that you were not counting on and didn't dress for either, but yet it becomes probably the most memorable moment of your trip.
Yeah. Rick?
Yeah,
Sorry?
Navin actually, Ignacio actually touched on two of the biggest trends that we're seeing right now. And probably the largest area of growth that we're seeing at Tauck are small group departures. And we'll double the number of small group departures that we have next year. And by small groups, the standard tour size group is about 38, and a small group departure is about half of that. The other area that, if you pick up any of our brochures, you'll see that there are specific departure dates that are marked in blue, and those are called solo departures. And those are departures where we've either eliminated the single supplement or we've greatly reduced it. And it's not only about reducing the single supplement, but it also kind of signals agents and other solo travelers that on that departure there will be many other solo travelers, so that nobody has to feel like they'll be alone.
To the opposite end, though.
Go ahead.
To the opposite end, I would say that we're seeing a lot of multi-generational requests, right? So then you have to make the tour something about everybody, because multi-generational travel has really become so much more prevalent, and we're spending so much more time with that as we start looking at the tours to book, that everyone's programs has evolved so that you can make it so that it fits not just the immediate family, but really going through the generational piece of it, so that there's something for everybody on that trip.
Yeah, Navin? Yeah.
So I think one of the takeaways for you is that we talked about personalization, but an important element of that is choice, and giving people a lot of choices and understanding what they want. When it comes to excursions, if you take the trend in fitness, you take the trend in people wanting a deeper understanding of where they are in an environment, etc., and combine those two, it's not shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that companies such as ours are now offering kayaking and snowshoeing in far-flung destinations like Antarctica and the Arctic. You do go on a hike to these places. But even if you take classic destinations, there are different ways in which you try to make people become part of the environment they're in or get a deeper understanding. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a cruise program that's around Sicily, and its theme is an Epicurean food and wine theme. But everybody's had a celebrity chef. Every town in this country has a celebrity chef, and we've all learned in America what wine is all about, considering 48 of our states produce wine. And we decided to take a completely different lens to this. And instead of giving people a walk through a market and all those kinds of things, and then the chef cooks something, we picked a Brooklynite who's lived in Sicily for the last 50 years and does nothing but write about the provenance of Sicilian food and how it got influenced by the Greeks and later the Turks as they conquered that, and how it's different from mainland Italy. It is a completely different way to understand that island. And we picked a partnership with Wine Spectator, so a local fellow can take you around and help you better understand what is still a farming community and not investment bankers producing wine, which is true of Sicily. We did another program that comes up this fall. It's along the coast, coming down from Vancouver into San Diego in partnership with Christie's. And when you come down that coast, yes, you do think of wine, but when you partner with Christie's, we can demystify how you collect wine and how you bid for that at an auction. Why? Because people want a different and deeper understanding of the experience. Many of them have already been to Napa and Sonoma if they come in from the East Coast or the middle of the country. And if they go into Los Angeles, it is probably the hottest market today globally for contemporary art. So you can have an expert take you and explain that to you in an artist studio or at Christie's and other museums there. And I think there's a lot of this kind of curation that allows people to come back with a far better understanding and transform themselves and become totally inspired by it.
Well, the word transform is something we can get into, but
Yeah,
Ted,
and I would say, James, because a lot of people may not understand this, even on a cruise, we cater to every, like Navin says, every menu. We have multi-generational. We found that out in the Pacific Northwest, particularly, our average age drops by more than 10 years. We have bicycles, we have jet boats, access, we have bicycles that we carry on board. We offer hang gliding, we offer fishing, and then we also offer theme cruises. So if you want to do a bourbon themed cruise, or
that was the one I
antebellum-
wanted to sign up for.
Okay, and then or we go to the Kentucky Derby. I mean, we've been in this business for quite a while. I was just comparing notes. I met Ignacio in 1992, which is quite a while ago. And back in the day when then only 18% of Americans even had a passport, we've doubled that now. We've got 36% because you have to have one to go to the Caribbean and Canada and Mexico. But that means 64% of Americans don't even have a passport, sadly. So we try to offer all of those.
Well, even back in the 80s and 90s, Americans didn't drink as much wine, and now we're become all over the country. It's amazing.
So it's incumbent upon us to have all of these offerings in a domestic cruise product.
I think there's one thing that needs a little bit of clarification, and it's often misunderstood, and that's what multi-generational travel is. A lot of times we think that multi-gen travel is for kids, and it's not. Really, what multi-gen travel is the creation of experiences that all generations can share together. And we learned this early on in the creation of Bridges, which is our multi-gen brand. And what we found is that, number one, you don't dumb it down for kids. Kids are smarter than you think. Number two, when it comes to fine properties and fine dining, the kids are more discerning than the parents. These kids have been all over the world.
Don't tell them my kids are spoiled rotten after all these years in the
Exactly.
business.
So we thought we would get away with peanut butter and jelly and hot dogs and hamburgers for the kids. It's really mom and dad that are like craving a hot dog and a burger, but the kids are ordering lobster and filet mignon. And so don't think it's about that. The other thing is that you have to take a look at the multi-gen program. Is it a program that serves the customer who wants to be separated from their kids so they could have their own vacation? Or is it a program for families that don't have enough time with their kids and want to really spend that quality time building shared experiences with their kids? So they really fall into two different buckets. And so we're very careful to make sure that everything that we do can engage grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad, and the kids. The other thing that you have to understand
the kids
is that,
who are maybe in their 20s or 30s, right?
Exactly, and that's the other thing I was going to say, is what's a family now? Right. So we cater to a lot of single-parent families because it's tough to be a single parent on vacation, and we cater to families that have adult children and and anything in between. And the average age for us of our multi-gen program isn't little kids, but the average kid runs 14, 15, 16 years old. Although we do have kids that are as young as 3, but they're very well behaved and they've been everywhere. And so it all really works well.